Hello and welcome to the Rangam Empathy Drives Innovation series, or REDi series. As part of the REDi series, we deliver blogs, chats, webinars, and other features to help accelerate career journeys. Whether you're a job seeker, an employer, educator, or community partner, REDi has something for you. I'm the Rangam Vice President of Global Marketing, Jerry Greider, and we have a great chat in store for you today. Today's REDi Chat is about the current staffing landscape, trends, and challenges. We'll be talking about understanding the current staffing landscape, challenges faced by employers, current trends, navigating opportunities for job seekers, and forecasting what could be next in the staffing landscape. I'd like to welcome our experts today. We have Rangam's Chief Executive Officer and Co-founder, Nish Parikh, and Rangam's Chief Operating Officer, James Mahoney. Welcome to the both of you for this installment of our REDi Chat series.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Awesome. So I'll start with you, Nish. How has the pandemic influenced the current trends and dynamics in the staffing landscape?
Yeah, pandemic has really, on both sides, on candidates, job seekers, as well as providers or staffing companies like us, has put us in this uncertainty in the area of employment, working from home, go back to work. So a lot of uncertainty, rapidly changing environment in terms of the technology adoption, working from home and hybrid models. One of the big impact we have experienced during the pandemic and in last few years is more and more interest on DEI. All of us became one-time disabled, right? We were not able to do certain things which we were able to do before. And that gave us an experience of being disabled or having some limitations. So some of those learnings has really changed the way employment is happening, and the employers are looking at the workforce as well as employees are looking at employers, right? Bringing in a lot of efficiency. So staffing industry has started adopting a lot of new technology in last few years. And technology is not new to our industry, but it's just that accelerated adoption, accelerated new innovation, and in recent months and quarters, accelerated adoption of technology in the space of AI and machine learning. How do we utilize technology to, number one, improve the quality of our services to our customers, provide better support to our candidates, as well as how do we scale up and serve more customers and grow. So a lot of things has been going on in our industry, but I don't know, James, if you have any thoughts, love to get your thoughts too.
Thanks, Nish, and thanks, Jerry, for guiding us in this, and thanks everyone for joining. As I think of the pandemic influence, it certainly created challenges. As you mentioned, Nish, turned us upside down overnight. We were on Zoom, and it also created a greater I'll say candidate-driven market where because through technology it was proven that we could work differently, that the workplace was no longer the same, and therefore the workforce had evolved. And the workforce had become younger as well. So that kind of perfect intersection of stuff, I think has made everyone, and I'm thankful for this, made everyone to have to be more creative, and technology is at the heart of shaping where do we go next. And we have to embrace the fact that where we are today and how we leverage technology will be obsolete 5-10 years from now. And that's good news, bad news, but we're going to get into technology more in later conversations.
Yeah, and actually, I think we can get into it now. When you talk about technology, I think back 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. Right now, I have a marketing team in the US, in India, in the UK. We meet daily. There's no delay in our conversation. We're talking, everything's instantaneous now. It's fascinating. Could not have done that 5 years ago? Where are we going to be 5 years from now? And so as we look at technology in the staffing industry, in what ways is the staffing industry shaping, or in what ways is technology shaping the evolution of staffing?
Yeah, I love this question. It's an enormous question and it's hard to contain the answer. But, I'm a person who was working so long ago. You notice I didn't say I'm so old, but I worked before we had email, right? And I remember seeing the first Windows demo in a little conference room and being wowed by File Manager, if some of you can remember that. Look, technology is a disruptor. And if you think of, I'll make a comparison. If you think of art, right? Art, although the media has changed and technology has certainly intersected with that, the techniques of painting and drawing have really not evolved in a long time. Technology, however, from the moment that man created the wheel, and I would argue that it might have been a woman and maybe a neurodiverse woman, it has not stopped changing how we live our lives. I also lived before ATMs and you could get instant cash, or I could Venmo you money. These are all disruptors. And so, as I mentioned, we were plunged into Zoom overnight. And the opportunities there are that we can meet the candidate-driven demands of how they want to work by leveraging technology and continuing to evolve and letting go of our fear of well, that's not how we used to do it. That's not good collaboration. Yeah, there are downfalls, but the downfalls can also be met by technology solutions. And so if I think of kind of where do we go next, I think we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak. That people want hybrid, they want remote, they want maybe some people want an in-person, but we're not going to go back to the standards, which was mostly working in the office that we had before. And so part of the solution is, I think, through technology, the collaborative side. Sure, we have teams and we have other things where that instant communication is happening, but what else can we develop? Not we, this group, but the larger we of technology professionals. What else can we develop that gets us something more human than a little iPad screen, right? And then conflicting with that, and we were just having a conversation earlier today, is ChatGPT is coming in, and there are so many beautiful benefits of it. There are dangers as well, right? And so how do you balance all of those things? My point is really a repeat of my premise, is that it's a disruptor, and we get through it, and sometimes we get through it by introducing other technologies to complement it or counteract it. So
Yeah.
Nish, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, one of the other, in addition to this, what I have seen and experienced in our industry is all the seamless integration of various tools and technologies, right? Plug, now that more and more the technology ecosystem available to the staffing industry now has started seamlessly integrated with each other. So it's all up to us how we want to build our own ecosystem by plugging in these different technologies, because with the APIs and all the advancement in integration technology, that has made it possible. So now we are able to, through this seamless integration of information and information sharing, we are able to provide better customer service, better candidate experience, and also we are able to deliver the services what our customers are looking for with a lot more efficiency and high speed.
Yeah. So in shifting away a little bit from technology, let's talk DE&I. James, how are DE&I initiatives transforming the current talent acquisition landscape, in your opinion?
Well, thankfully, I think most companies, certainly those that are mature, have a true embedded belief in the value of diversity. Once upon a time, we were kind of not wrapping our heads around that, and it had to be proven, and a lot of questions and a lot of, I'll say, conscious and unconscious biases were introduced, or skepticism. And we're past that point. I think 99% of the companies and the people working in those companies are past that. But what I love about the evolution of how companies are thinking about diversity is they moved from diversity to diversity and inclusion, to diversity, equity, and inclusion, to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. They keep enriching what they mean by that, so that it's participatory, it's for everyone. And the other thing that I think has been a maturation by many companies is they're no longer just thinking of demographics, right? Gender, race, ethnicity, sexuality, but they've broadened that scope to include beyond the demographic diversity to the cognitive diversity. How do people think? How do they learn? How do they process? And then to the experiential diversity, right? So somebody who might not have a college degree, but learned self-taught Java, Python, works in an iPhone store, an Apple store. So I think companies are really are starting to value the aptitude over, do you have today's programming language, right? To me, it's more valuable to hire somebody who can learn multiple languages very quickly, rather than, I need a .NET developer today, right? And I think we tend to hire for today. The problem that needs to be met by looking in many new places in these different levels of diversity, and people without degrees, or people re-entering the workforce, or a second chance program for people getting out of jail, is we have monthly, this is a pretty consistent month, around 10 million open jobs in the US alone. And by 2030, I think that number is going to skyrocket, and worldwide it's going to result in unrealized revenue in the $88 billion range. If we don't start looking in new places and really understanding what are our fixed requirements and what are our flexible requirements. College degree, for instance, I argue could be a flexible requirement for many technology roles. Probably not a neurosurgeon. So I want to be clear, it's not a blanket. But I think what that will do is it will meet the challenge of number of open jobs worldwide and US, but it will also start to bring in those three layers of diversity: demographic, cognitive, experiential. And that enrichment, if companies do it right, will start to feel more like a reflection of many of our customers, our community of customers. Hope that helps.
So it's more of a screening in versus a screening out.
Exactly.
Looking at things.
They're really good way to capture it.
And also, we have, Jerry, other new trend which we have started experiencing at Rangam is some of our customers, these are global customers with global employees all over the world. They have started centralizing their DEI strategy from US and expanding that, and kind of consolidated, bringing all their efforts under one roof. This is something which makes us more so excited, because this is an opportunity for US and the headquarter based in US drive these initiatives globally and take it to the completely next level. We know that DEI has a different definition, not definition, but kind of criteria or a focus area, and depend on the country. But this centralized initiative is kind of creating that influence throughout the world. So we have seen some tremendous interest from companies who is really expanding their program and managing their program from US and and expand this truly globally.
Yeah. So you talked about customers and looking at employers as a whole, what are some of those unique challenges right now that employers are facing in the staffing space?
So our latest and greatest challenges customers are facing, like everybody, is uncertainties, and we have started seeing some improvement in recent months. But having those new positions open and closing those positions where we have seen some variation, depend on the industry. Other challenges, which is I think a lot more bigger than this one, is making those decisions, setting up those policies on hybrid versus on-site versus off-site. And when it comes to contingent, it's making it more complicated. But of that challenge, another challenge which some of our customers are facing is related to certain skill set. They are looking for certain skills which either doesn't exist or it's still building in the market. And but the opportunity here is, if we talk about the opportunity, this whole global marketplace of talent is really helping some of the employers, including us at Rangam, where some of the niche small projects we can tap into the talent from any part of the world, get some of the work done and move forward. But it is challenging time when it comes to the niche skill set, finding that talent.
Yeah, and Nish, you were talking, about attracting that talent. And so, James, how can employers strategize to better attract and retain top talent in this competitive market right now?
Yeah, again, this is going to be a recurring theme for me. Maybe is that the candidate profiles today are in a different generation than many of us, and so many of them are focused on impact outside of the company's walls, right? So not only does the messaging by the employer have to be clear as to why us, it has to include what impact do we create in the world beyond, building technology or managing your wealth, right? What else do we do? How do we reinvest? How do we give back? I think that's a draw for people, for many people of different generations. And then part of that, perhaps the recipe includes that you have strong values, and values aren't a poster on every wall in the hallways. Values have to be shared by all. All is a big word, maybe many, most. And you have to test those values against, when you're creating your values. Let's say you're just creating them. You have to not just come up with really sweet words, but think of who are your best employees, and then go through the values that you think are right and say, does Jerry, is he empathetic? Is he innovative? Is he ... Because if you don't test those against those who you know to be your best, then you're already at a point of dilution. And then importantly, that you reward and you test for these things in an interview and reward when someone's hired and demonstrating them. And then, I think as part of that extension is there have to be clear pathways for mobility and promotion in your organization, and that you're always eyeing who's your top talent, who are high potential, and not just stopping there. They will have development needs. We all do today, and we all did in the past, and someone helped us get better in an area. That's the investment that you have to make in people, and it's also part of your why us, right? That not only do we want you to be promoted, those are just words. We've got really good processes in place to help you get there, to help you succeed. Those I think are some of the major ones I can think of, and they're not only healthy for the individual and the client attraction, but they're healthy for the company, because the future leaders are likely in your company today and will be part of your succession plan, making your company stronger and more modern thinking.
That's great. And so, as we look at the company or at a company, Nish, we've seen dramatic rise to remote work. How can employers maintain a cohesive and a collaborative work environment?
Yeah. So in this during this time, I think going forward, we do not have a choice than to give that option of remote work to our workers. But at the same time, not every role is built for the remote work. There are certain roles which needs in-person attention, collaboration, and communication and coordination. So there are certain roles. So there is no, in my view, there is no one fits all kind of a solution when it comes to remote or hybrid or on-site. But what we have started seeing, that companies, they have adopted more hybrid model, which is more accepted by the workers today. And going forward, it will be all depend on how companies are establishing those processes and those policies and build those programs around collaboration, so that automatically is going to give us or giving us an opportunity to collaborate with each other, kind of giving an opportunity to talk to each other. Also, more importantly, giving us an opportunity to take a break in between the calls. So this there are certain policies and procedures are going to make or break the company culture. And it is a sensitive topic for all of us, and we are always looking at some of those challenges and say, how can we make it so that it's not just fair, it's healthy for all of us. That's going to be the real. On the same time, how do we focus on the productivity, focus on the outcomes, focus on innovation, so that we can all grow together.
No, that's great. And you touched on what I was about to ask. So let me read some stats to you both here. In 2023, the Jobs List U.S. Job Market Report came up with a stat that 36% of job seekers are looking for fully remote roles. 44% want to be in person, and 19% prefer to be hybrid. And so, Nish, you touched on this a little bit. How difficult or easy is it for an organization to accommodate such a wide variety of employee preferences and still operate at optimum levels?
James, you want to take that? Or
Thanks, Nish.
I know, that was a tough one. I threw that one out.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to stitch together the previous question around remote work and the collaboration challenges, and tie it to the how do people want to work today. And I fully embrace the how do people want to work today. I think we need to meet that challenge. We need to solve the collaboration challenge as well. If you think back to pre-pandemic, anyone who was working, I know, if I had meetings in the office, in between meetings, often I wouldn't even do more work. I would get out, walk around, check in with people, say, hi, how are your kids? It was, that leads to a warmer place. But then, of course, you can gather in a conference room and have meetings and collaboration, or work through a war room, or different things, and that's highly collaborative. Having said that, the college junior or even sophomore in 2019 was applying for an internship, and the internship came about in 2020, and it was remote. And their work experience since has been either remote, hybrid, very few probably in person. depending on the role, as Nish said. So their experience isn't that, familiar walk by, check in, and beyond the getting out of the flat screen, how do we get more collaborative? I think we also have to get more social. The social piece is huge, and technology is blocking that interaction now that we do have this hybrid model by and large. I don't know the full answer to it, but I believe strongly that the challenge is not just collaboration on a work project, but how do we interact as humans, right? How do we get that connection? I think many of us think our success comes from building great relationships and getting to know people. That's missing. That's very little part of our jobs anymore. So
that's great. That's a great answer. Moving on from there, as you were talking about the junior or the sophomore and the recent graduating class looking for jobs, job seekers in general, what advice would you give to today's job seekers trying to stand out in the current job market? Nish, I'll throw that one to you.
Sure. I would say my first advice would be be open. Be open to change your career path. Learn latest and greatest new things happening in the market, in the industry. But more importantly, be open to take it as a challenge, new opportunities, because the way the industry and the companies and the technology and all day-to-day activities happening with Fortune 500 customers of ours is rapidly changing. And in my view, as a job seeker, if I'm in the market, I still have time to explore new things, learn new things, and prepare myself. My advice would be stick to your core expertise, but always open to explore other new things happening in the market and keep up with this new trend. And so that next job or next assignment, you are better prepared with cutting edge, latest and greatest things happening in the world.
Yeah, and Nish, you touched on my question was how can job seekers leverage new opportunities? I think that you spoke to that there. So I'll ask more of a personal preference question, James, to you. If you were out looking for a job right now, what factors would you consider when looking for your next job or your next employer?
Yeah, Jerry, that's a great question, and it's filled with some experiential bias, quite honestly, because I've had several jobs, I've interviewed many times, I've looked at different employers, but I'm way different than somebody who's at an earlier point in his, her, or their career. But from my standpoint, through that experience, I do look beyond the business results. It's one of the reasons I'm at Rangam is, strong business results, but also their why is very clear and their mission is very focused. And that to me, in the autumn of my career, allows me to marry what I'm good at, whether I learned it or I just have this ability, with what motivates me intrinsically, what gets my head on the pillow easier at night or keeps me wide awake thinking, right? And so those are some of the big theme items that I look for. I also, during an interview process, I'm looking for, am I connecting with this person? Are we comprehending one another really well? And importantly, does this person have a sense of humor, right? And do they point out where they're weak? Do they show where they individually are vulnerable and need help, or where the company needs help? Those are all important to me But again, I'm later in career. For a younger person, I think there are some of those that are still advice I would provide and do provide through mentorships to people. And I'll echo what I said earlier, is that, you know, my best advice is to envision what your career will be like there, right? Is it a stepping stone to a next job outside that company, or do you see 1, 2, 3 moves within that company, which I think is highly valuable.
That's great. And Nish, do you want to give your thoughts on that too?
Yeah, yeah.
You've been
Very-
doing Rangam for nearly 30 years. So what are your thoughts?
No, very similar to what James mentioned. It's I would look at the 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 opportunity with the lens of what is my area of interest, what is I'm really passionate about, and how do I see the future. That's the first level of assessment. And then second, of course, is whether I have that skill set, whether I have that experience, and I will try to map that with my passion and what I would really like to do. uh, if I'm starting a brand new career and if I do not have any experience, then absolutely I will look at the criteria where I'm really passionate about, which industry I like, where I can contribute more. I would start with that and then tie that with my skill and my education.
Yeah.
Jerry, if I could just add one thing, as Nish was speaking, this reminded me of a leader I had once upon a time who used the term "perform like water," and that's, I think, great advice for anyone. And what I mean by that is, you know, water will go where there are gaps and cracks and emptiness, right? It has directional value of its own. In performing like that outside of the bounds of your responsibilities, quote unquote, I think allows you to shine, to show innovation, to show problem solving, willingness to jump in, and it also creates a great learning opportunity for you as you try to plunge into things that are unknown to you. So kind of simple, but I think wise.
Right.
So, James, I think you have given me a blanket check that I can go anywhere within Rangam and do whatever I want to do because I'm restricted by the. Sorry, I love this. I'm going to remind you that, hey, James, this is I'm performing like water, so I'm allowed to do certain things. Which, no, I'm just kidding. But no, I love this. This is a great example, and thank you for sharing, James.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Nish, you mentioned the future. So we're going to talk about the future now. James, I'll start with you. You know, looking ahead, what do you foresee as the next major shift in talent acquisitions? And how can employers, job seekers, you know, how can they prepare for it?
I think you know, companies are quite different from one another, and sometimes industries or types of positions drive those differences. But I think there's still a lot of active resistance to what candidates want in their next job, and I think, you know, you wouldn't resist what customer demands are or what they want or need because it's bringing revenue to you. And so I think the same principles can be applied to candidates or potential new employees, that you know, meet the requirements. They're demanding this, right? And it is in a way revenue for you, because we can measure revenue per employee as much as we can measure cost per employee. So that resistance, I think it will naturally be diffused and die off. But I think that's one thing. And the other is to keep an eye on AI/ML, because including Nish wants to use it a lot, and there's a carefulness we must take in that as we try to meet the future in terms of where and how we leverage it, and we don't just shift human biases to automated biases, and that's a real danger. And so that's the caution I give there.
That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Jerry, in my, as you know, we are passionate at Rangam, we are passionate about inclusion and diversity. So the future I see in coming years is companies will have that part of their hiring process, inclusion strategy or policies in place. That's what that's, I would say, hope for the future. And as James mentioned, the future looks like it's very promising in terms of the automation and efficiency and the speed and best quality services delivered to our customer. And it's all up to us how we leverage the technology, and as James mentioned, how carefully we utilize technology for productivity versus biasness. So that's the future.
Yeah, that's great. And so as we close out this session, I'd love to get closing thoughts from the both of you. I'll start with you, James.
Well, thanks, Jerry, and thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was, I don't know that you learned anything new, but I always think it's successful when we can collaborate and that we can just think about something and it triggers a thought in us for you to take your own creative process and make it even better. So thank you again.
And Nish.
No, thank you for the opportunity, Jerry, to come and share. As James said, this is not new. This is in talking about this topic for years. It's just an ongoing conversation, and we would love to continue this conversation and collaborate and learn from each other.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'd like to say thank you to both of you, Nish and James, for sharing your expertise with us today. And thank you to our audience for joining us for this latest installment of our REDi Chat series. If you would like to learn more about REDi Chat, Rangam, or any of our solutions, you can go to rangam.com or follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And on YouTube, we have over 150 videos, I believe, talking about these very subjects, so you can learn a lot there. But from all of us at Rangam, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.